9. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up a mountain. He sat down and his disciples came to him. He taught them, saying, "Happy are people who make peace, because they will be called God's children." 1 Samuel 25, 14 through 31. One of Nabal's servants told his wife Abigail, "David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he just yelled at them. But the men were very good to us and didn't mistreat us. Nothing of ours went missing the whole time we were out with them in the fields. In fact, the whole time we were with them, watching our sheep, they were a protective wall around us, both night and day. Think about that and see what you can do, because trouble is coming for our master and his whole household. But he's such a despicable person, no one can speak to him." Abigail quickly took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep ready for cooking, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 raisin cakes, and 200 fig cakes. She loaded all this on donkeys and told her servants, "Go on ahead of me, I'll be right behind you." But she didn't tell her husband Nabal. As she was riding her donkey, going down the trail on the hillside, David and his soldiers appeared, descending toward her, and she met up with them. David had just been saying, "What a waste of time, guarding all this man's stuff in the wilderness, so that nothing of his went missing. He has repaid me evil instead of good. May God deal harshly with me, David, and worse still if I leave alive even one single one who urinates on a wall belonging to him come morning." When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and fell face down before him, bowing low to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Put the blame on me, my master, but please let me, your servant, speak to you directly. Please listen to what your servant has to say. Please, my master, pay no attention to this despicable man, Nabal. He's exactly what his name says he is. His name means fool, and he is foolish. But I myself, your servant, didn't see the young men that you, my master, sent. I pledge, my master, as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, that the Lord has held you back from bloodshed and taking vengeance into your own hands. But now let your enemies and those who seek to harm my master be exactly like Nabal. Here is a gift which your servant has brought to my master. Please let it be given to the young men who follow you, my master. Please forgive any offense by your servant. The Lord will definitely make an enduring dynasty for my master, because my master fights the Lord's battles, and nothing evil will be found in you throughout your lifetime. If someone chases after you and tries to kill you, my master, then your life will be bound up securely in the bundle of life by the Lord your God. But he will fling away your enemies' lives as from the pouch of a sling. When the Lord has done for my master all the good things he has promised you and has installed you as Israel's leader, don't let this be a blot or burden on my master's conscience, that you shed blood needlessly, or that my master took vengeance into his own hands. When the Lord has done good things for my master, please remember your servant." May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word.
You may be seated. Let us pray this morning, shall we? Holy God, let this be your time. Let this be your message. Let this be your word upon our hearts and upon our lives. Help us to be renewed once again as your people. Bless the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts. Might it be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Jesus turns to his disciples today and says basically, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." This week I thought a little bit about my history of peacemaking. I found out it's a little short. I thought a little bit about, those in my life who have sought to be people of shalom, of peace, of justice, in peaceful ways. And I chuckled this week because I live with one of them. I don't chuckle over that, but I remember the memory. You see, my youngest son, Andrew, and his mother cannot stand conflict. It drives them crazy. And young Andrew, we moved into this neighborhood, and he was so happy that this family moved in next door to us. And they had 3 kids. They had a girl, a boy, and a girl. And the oldest was his age, he played with anyone, but it was nice to have friends and peers around his age. And so he struck up a relationship with them. One day during the summer, he went over to play, and it was an hour later, maybe 10:30 in the morning, he comes back, goes up to his room. We thought that was a bit odd, but didn't say anything. We thought, well, maybe he's hungry, he came home early for lunch or something, I don't know. Right after the lunch hour, the phone rings, and it's the kids next door's mother, Nan, who calls us and says, hey, can Andrew come out and play? And the smart aleck in me kicked in, and I said, well, I think you're a little bit old for him. And Nan shared with us, no, we love it when he's over. You see, our kids fight like cats and dogs with each other. But Andrew comes over and they all want to play with him. And this morning I overheard him saying, well, if you guys are going to fight, then I'm just going to go home. And they're devastated. I think she wanted to adopt him or move him in for a while, just to keep the peace in the house. Because, he was that new guy that everyone wanted to be a part of. I think there's a little bit in each one of us that at times wants to run away from conflict. At times just want to separate ourselves from the drama, right? Distance ourselves and say, whoop, good luck to them. Consider Abigail's situation for a minute today. David's reputation has far preceded him. He's been a very successful warrior, and he and his soldiers can do one thing and one thing well. They can destroy you. In running from Saul, the first king of Israel, who seeks to do him in, he finds himself in a foreign country, and there, underneath the providence of Nabal, he agrees to use their services to protect Nabal's kingdom, his people, his sheep, his bounty, and of course, in maybe paranoia, maybe there's some hurt going on here, I'm not sure what, Nabal is a little distrusting of what David's agenda really is. And so he's mistreating him. David gets to the point that he's pretty much had enough, and somewhere, Nabal's wife Abigail hears from one of her servants that David's really not happy. Things are not going to go well for Nabal and his kingdom. Now, we can understand maybe the dire situation that she's in. We have to do something. But you see, I find this woman's courage to be the most interesting part of the story. Not only does she recognize the conflict and the danger, but she hopes to see a different position, a different situation, a different future in store for her and her family and her home. She also finds within her the courage to step into the conflict and to work for the purpose of peace, in reminding David that he is the Lord's and that his actions should clearly be motivated by his faith. And that if he is in connection with God and is working for God's purpose, whatever he does will be just. David does not destroy Nabal and his kingdom. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. We learned in our children's lesson this morning that at times when people come together, there's a bit of friction, isn't there? I just taught a class on social justice yesterday, and one guy said, this gospel thing would be a lot easier if I didn't have to do it with other people. And I often wonder at times if we would rather not deal with the frailties and the hurts that go on within our church communities, within our civic communities, maybe within our families, as we start hurling towards the holiday season. Part of my class, I was supposed to go look for sand, find sand yesterday, and I went to Walmart and found out that they don't have sand, they have Christmas decorations already, so I guess that season has already started in some way. I think back at an appointment that was made of mine in a church in which there were two ladies who were vying for the same position that they really desperately wanted in the church. They fought openly about it at times, not in the pastor's presence. And I'm told that even in their ministry at some points when the meetings took place to discuss what this ministry would be, when they disagreed with each other, in a couple meetings they made the habit of kicking each other in the shins underneath the table. Other people around them observed this, and the tension in the room was high. I thought to myself, we're in ministry in the church and we're kicking each other. Now let me give you some perspective. One of the gals was about 72 years old, and the other gal was around, I'd say, 87 to 89 years old. When I met with them to talk to them about it, they always talked glowingly at how much they loved the other lady. One saw her as a mother, one saw her as a daughter. I rejected their invitation to Thanksgiving dinner. But this is how family, I'm teasing on that one. And when I would talk to people in the church, hey, what's going on? We'll give them names. We'll call the younger gal Anna. We'll call the older gal Teresa. Protect them, the innocent. What's going on? People would tell me that they used to vacation with Anna and her husband. But she had become such a negative Millie that they didn't even go anymore, or didn't invite them, or in cases, amongst the group that vacationed together, would go in secret. Teresa and others shared with me that she was struggling to be seen as a leader in some of the civic organizations she was involved in the community, and was struggling in this role in the church that she would be seen as leader. And then when I go to the community, and I'd ask some of the other elders in the church, so to speak, the lay leaders, hey, what's going on with these people? The response was, that's just how they are. And I wonder, is that really who they want to be? So I waited over the months to interact with them and to find situations that reinforced some of this negative behavior that really was uncrossable. I really think they truly both sought to be more Christ-like, but at times had just gotten off the path. And when I had situations that I had experienced with them, and when the moment came and we had an opportunity to sit down and talk, I said with Anna, do you realize the perception that people might have of you? Let me describe a person. And I shared some of the interactions that I had experienced or witnessed, been a part of. If someone around you behaved like this, what would you do? I'd probably not hang out with them. And I said, hopefully graciously, do you realize I'm talking about you? Do you realize that at times, even though you really were raised in the church, you have a heart for Christ, somehow there is this unhealthiness that's kind of come and seeped in. She was devastated. It's never easy when the mirror is put on us, is it? We see our own reflection as it is. And then we talked about ways in which we could move beyond. She embraced these. She went forward as a changed person. And in fact, a couple of years later, one of the other ladies in the church, who was one of my lay leaders, said, you know what, I've seen this lady as a little girl, and and I've never seen her more at peace. I learned in my last year under that appointment that she was going on vacation again with her friends. We're in the transformation business, aren't we? That's what the gospel is all about. Sometimes we need a little help. Sometimes when people see the conflict, they write us off. Maybe it's been years, maybe it's been decades. But the peacemaker is one that sees a new future, a new possibility, and a new hope in that situation. And is willing to find a way through the power of God to step in the middle and to make peace. Teresa and I had a similar conversation. She was a bit in denial. She set herself against me and told a bunch of people that I hated her. They would come to me and say, well, I know that you don't get along with Teresa, and I'd say, I think I get along okay with her. I don't always accept her behavior. I think that there's someone else in there that wants to come out and, why do you think she behaves or thinks that way? I started asking the church to become a part of the peacemaking process. She was wounded, I found out, because she signed up to lead a Sunday school class at her home and no one volunteered to go. And so we started talking. That church had been devastated in the past, and there was a lot of question of whether or not it could survive its history. And I would observe, for instance, she would walk into the cafe area in the morning on the way to the sanctuary, and a couple times she would say, I'm headed to the sanctuary to pray. I'm not going to sit around with cups of coffee and cookies and gossip this morning. And she'd walk past all these people and go sit down. This was the type of interaction. And one morning I went and prayed with her. I sat with her and said, let's ask ourselves, if someone did this to you, would you accept them into your tribe? Would you invite them over for Thanksgiving dinner? And as the community sought for a different way and for an answer to her behavior, she did some soul searching. I don't think people wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to be mean. Today I'm going to be disconnected. Today I'm going to be distant from people. I think all of us yearn to find some acceptance and some connection and some respect. So she just needed a new way. A year later, she was sitting down having coffee with those people. I asked her when we were sitting in prayer, if you think they're gossiping, how is that going to change by you sitting in here admonishing them? Why don't you sit down at the table, get to know them? And at points, things turn to gossip. Say, hey, let's not participate in that. She found a greater sense of community. She was voted president of a civic responsibility or civic group toward the end of our tenure there. What if the church just looked upon us with all of our faults and failings and said, that's just the way they are, and wrote us off? What type of scripts would be cast upon us? How would our behavior be influenced by those who have, in effect, written us off? We all have people in our lives that can be prickly, can't we? And one decision would be just to stay away from them. Another might be to try to understand why they behave the way that they do. And believe that that's not who they want to be or who they were created to be. And we can find ways and channels beautifully to come alongside and to help them find the person they were created to be. There are beautiful people that walk amongst us, that seek the building of peace. While war at times repels us, it also fascinates us. Conflicts at times cause us to say, what's wrong with them? But then we want to hear more. But the peacemaker, the one who chooses a life of building bridges rather than burning them, those are the ones to be called children of God. Jesus in the Gospel of John turns to his disciples and says, all this I have spoken to you while I'm still with you. But the Counselor, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything that I have said to you. Peace I leave you. Peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, nor let them be afraid. Just before he goes to the cross, Jesus describes his intention of his ministry. A ministry of bridge building, a ministry of peace, a ministry of hope. Do not be afraid. If we are, like David, seeking the heart of God, seeking to reflect and represent that, he'll give us the words. He'll give us the heart. He'll give us the hope and the opportunity to bring peace in the world again today. Amen? As the praise band comes forward this morning, won't you join me in prayer? Gracious and holy God, it is your heart that we seek. It is the life reflected in the person that we have come to know, who is filled with love, who looks down upon us and around us and through us, not as who we are today, but who we were created to be. Blessed, beautiful, loved, holy. Blessed are the peacemakers and those who have come in the difficult places of life, believing that shalom is possible, trusting completely in you. Let your peace be upon them. Let your peace be upon us as we seek to be agents of the creation of heaven here on earth. So we turn our hearts and our lives toward songs of praise, toward a time of thanksgiving, a time of renewal, and a time of hope for you. Purify our hearts, our minds, and our world. Amen. Friends, during our music time today,